We have Coach Alex Pleasic, our athlete performance director here. I'm super excited to have her on the podcast. We spent a ton of time together just in the trenches, building out our athlete program specifically. And AP's done an excellent job at doing that over the span of the last 2 years here. So we had to get her on the show. AP, what's popping?
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Of course. So obviously, like we just said, we took a program that we were kind of in limbo with.
Mhm.
And here we are like, okay, we have this D1 player here. She wants to ascend herself. She's just getting in the realm of private sector fitness. We're putting her in this position right off the rip. I'm going to change the script here. What was the biggest shock factor from going to, I'm just a coach, now I'm responsible for, something that's a little bit more high level?
I mean, yeah, the workload just doubled, right? Before I was just coaching like 6 to 8 hours a day. Now I'm coaching, I'm responsible for money, schedules, getting people into the building on top of all of my coaching sessions, right? My coaching didn't diminish at all. And I actually probably got busier after I sent into that role. And then I had a whole responsibility of like a micro part of the business on top of that. So yeah, it's just doubled in terms of workload.
I think too, a lot of times people talk about building skill sets and like you need to read, you need to get better. I know you're doing a lot of that. But is there anything better, if you will, than just jumping right in? I think one of the things that we did was like, hey, look, like this is the rule, this is the requirements. But do you think there's a gap there? Do you think you have to be prepared, or what was that like?
Um, I think preparedness is just like a feeling of comfortability. So I think to any ascending to any role, there's going to be a little bit of uncomfortability there. Do you think I should have been better prepared for the role? No, I think especially in this business, in this sector and the way it goes, there's no like true script for anything that you really, have to do. It kind of goes just by personality because you communicate with people so much. So I think, just getting involved a little bit more. Maybe I think something that could have helped was just listening to a few more sales calls in the beginning, but I'm just such a visual learner and kind of learn as I go that I think that was just the best way for me to learn the position.
Sure. And I
Yeah.
think too, talking about you being prepared and you were a D1 athlete. So going
Mhm.
back to it, why don't you tell a little bit about yourself? Because a lot of people who listen to this podcast, they're not only gym owners, they're young coaches that are your age, some females. And
Mhm.
so how did sports, if you will, or give us your background and how sports helped you prepare for the role?
Yeah, so I growing up played almost every sport under the sun. And then once I hit about like sixth, seventh grade, maybe eighth grade, I knew that I wanted to play softball in college. And that was my main goal. It was what I did every day, every weekend, preparing myself the best way that I possibly could, putting myself in the best position possible, trying to go out and play the best teams possible, get as much exposure as I could. So from a really young age, I had a very good idea of what I wanted my next step of my chapter to be in my life. And just dedicating that time to it. Like I said, I played on many competitive club teams. I was traveling on a Friday afternoon at 7 o'clock, an hour and a half away to go to practice on Sundays as well. I didn't really have, a ton of downtime for like a social life. Obviously, of course, I was like had a social life, but that was just more like for me, I just love playing sports and softball, especially. So I just dedicated all as much time as I possibly could to get myself into that position where I then played 5 years of college softball at the University of Rhode Island. I played through COVID, which was a unique experience in itself. And I think I learned a lot just being there in that time as well. And then right after that, I graduated and I came back here, and I trained here, through that whole time from middle school all the way through college. And just being in an environment like this also really pushed my desire to get into strength conditioning. The people here, the environment that was created, I fell in love with it. And I just knew I wanted to be in some active environment post college as well. So, yeah.
And you said it though, two things is one, being a forward thinker. I think
Mhm.
two, like obviously you coach a bunch of the athletes, but
Yeah.
being an athlete yourself means you have to plan and prepare, know your schedule by default.
Yeah. 100%.
Well, so that that skill set alone transferred over into kind of what we have going on here.
Yeah.
The second thing is, like you said, is being a forward thinker. And, do you think that that helped? Like, I just think of a lot of the young coaches, like, think about all the interns that we've had
Yeah.
and how many interns come into the door and like they think one thing. So they're like,
Mhm.
hey, like, I want to do this. I want to be in fitness, private sector, training athletes, whatever the case may be. But they might not know the role or they don't know what the job actually entails, which leads into my last part, and I'll land this plane. But it's like by the constraints of you wanting to be a good athlete, be the best athlete you can, all the things that were required of it, like required of being that athlete, were just like, yeah, I'll go. I have to drive an hour and a half away for practice. Sure, whatever. Oh, I have to
Yeah.
do this. Yeah, whatever.
Mhm.
So my question to you is, being a young coach in the fitness industry, what were some of those things that you didn't know were associated with the job that kind
Yeah.
of like slapped you in the face a little bit that you could give to other young coaches who are like, hey, I want to be in private sector fitness,
Yeah.
but I don't really know what it entails.
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about this the other day or maybe like last week, but the hours in a private sector are slightly unforgiving in the beginning, especially because you just got to grind it out. You got to be a dog. You got to like put yourself in as many positions as possible, because you need to be able to train anyone at any time of the day, be able to communicate with as many people as possible. So, me playing a college sport, right? My hours are very unforgiving as well. So I think having that experience was definitely prepared me. I was in the gym weight room 3 days a week at 6 a.m. I had practice at 6 p.m. So very unforgiving hours. And I think a lot of people don't really understand that. They think they're going to work like an 11 to 6. They think they're going to work a 6 to 2. And yes, some days you probably will do that, but some days you have to put in a little bit extra work as well. So I think that's something that a lot of people just don't really realize. Another thing is it's hard on your body, your feet. You're on your feet all day. And you think you might be super fit, prior to being getting into the industry, but having to stand on your feet all day, communicate with people, and not just, set equipment up the whole nine. It's a whole environment seeking experience that you need to create for people. They're not here just to train. They want to communicate with you. They want to get to know you better. You have to get to know them better. And I think that was really difficult for me. I never thought I was a super social person. Obviously I like to communicate with people and friends, but like me walking up to a complete stranger and introducing myself to them and then taking them through a whole workout was definitely a shock factor in the beginning, and trying to make a lot of small talk.
Oh yeah,
Definitely probably not my strong suit. But like anything, it just comes with practice and having like a good personality and being inviting to people to want to come communicate with you as well. So
for sure. You said something that I don't think a lot of people understand, which is just say yes and put yourself in opportunities to succeed.
yeah.
I think that people try to put boundaries or guardrails on themselves too soon. You should eventually, but too soon. And that actually limits you from some of the opportunity and exposure that you get.
Yeah.
So, super pointed to like you specifically. What were some opportunities that you were just like, yeah, sure. Like, yeah, I'm going to say yes to this just so I know that it might put me in another position to succeed.
Yeah. I mean, there's many like, I think I've like my first year here, we were training like a football team at 5 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. And we usually close at like 2 o'clock. And Dan was like, do you want to do this? And I was like, sure. Coming, staying a little bit longer and on a Friday when usually we have a little bit of a shorter day, just to like learn and, hang out with people, and just especially train like a team environment like that again. That was a cool experience, especially it was a football team. I was like a year or two out of college, so not far removed from these kids. And
Remember? Yeah.
yeah, having them to listen to me, especially as a female, probably never having a female really tell them what to do in like this environment before was a huge experience, and a
Yeah,
huge
you were literally like 4 years older than these dudes.
yeah, basically. um, and then coming in, like taking extra shifts, I think was super beneficial to me, just wanting to work a little bit more. Um, Part-time, I was like, when I first started after college, I was obviously working part-time. And I really didn't know what to do with myself when I wasn't here. So I was just trying to get any opportunity I can. And I just never said no. So whatever anyone wanted me to do, I just said yes. Training the junior program by myself I think it was like my first few months coming into here. One of the coaches was out and I had to take 12 junior kids and train them by myself, and they're a whole experience in itself. So, just never saying no, and just trying to find the best solution and create the best environment in that session at the time. Yeah.
Yes, and one thing you didn't mention is so obviously if you guys have been listening for a while is we have multiple locations. And just to stay in the mix, AP was working in Ridgewood
Oh
and
yeah.
here in Winterberg, uh, voluntarily. Just, hey, sure, I can split my time. I'll mix up my days. And I'm sure, I don't have to tell you, that can get very taxing because you got to be able to compartmentalize.
Yeah.
So that's the training side, that's coaching side. But my another question is, more so on maybe like the business side or the management side. Did you ever have an inkling where you're like, I think I want to do more than just outside of coaching? Because if we were to be honest, it's like your coaching stint right now is like 4 years,
Yeah.
which is not a long time. And yet
Right.
after 4 years, really after like 2.5, 3 years, you're in a managerial position. So
Mhm.
what positions did you put yourself in to succeed there? And did you have an inkling that you're like, I think I could do that?
Yeah. I think a big thing for me, which obviously just being a little bit alongside of you the whole experience and the whole time here, as like a leader, a guider, just having someone that I could ask any questions with, that I could learn from. Right? Don't have to say it, but you have so much experience and have trained so many different people in various situations. And just learning from you. I've tagged along with you a ton to different events.
I beat you up a lot, yes.
Yep. So just putting me, especially outside of Varsity House Gym, this is the only place that I ever trained and learned about training really. So just to go and tag along with you guys to other places, and just learn from there was a big thing. Also, like being involved in like the BOS calls, learning a little bit more about business. I know when I first took over this role, it kind of came a little bit unnaturally to me. So being involved in some of the business strength calls, like listening to some of your guys' Zoom calls, being in some of like the in-house events that we've had, and just learning about business. Like I said, not necessarily just from you guys, but also from other people.
Yeah.
In different situations. You can always learn a lot from everyone else, even though you might be doing some stuff very similarly, training the same people, the same demographic, but the way they communicate a little bit differently, just helps broaden the way you can communicate as well. So, putting myself, learning in-house as well as out of house as well in terms of the business has definitely been very beneficial.
Sure. I appreciate the kind words, but it's really, I think what you did, which was pretty unique, is, and I know you kind of said is you're putting yourself in those positions to succeed, but I think you also don't know what you don't want until you have the exposure, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like
Hmm.
I remember, not at all that this is about me, but I remember just like, yeah, you want to coach and you want to be a world-class coach because you're around other coaches, but then it's like you get introduced to this concept over here. I'm just
Yeah.
using an example, maybe like running a business or running an athlete program, and you're like, oh, cool, I kind of do like that.
Yeah. And I
So,
didn't really know like yeah. I didn't even really like know what the job entailed, when it
that's
when it first happened. So like
sure. But you were just like, oh, I think I could do that, or like that sounds kind of nice, or what have you. And so this whole part here, I think is important for you guys listening, and AEPs could say it way more than I can, is just putting yourself in rooms to succeed and asking questions and just not saying no. I use like a very small example, but because I hear it from other coaches and trainers, let's say a BOS call or an event that's Friday at 4 o'clock, Friday, 5 o'clock. It's like you've had a long week. You're doing a lot of things. You've had a long week, but you're like, I'm just gonna go. I'm just gonna show face. I'm just gonna be there. It's very easy to just be like, oh, I gotta head home. I'm gonna shower, eat dinner. I'm just gonna chill and put my feet up. And so I think for being an athlete, I think that that's what puts you in that ability to succeed, or put you in that room and give you the ability to succeed.
yeah, definitely.
So from career trajectory standpoint, all right, athlete program director, you just said it's like, what the heck does that even mean? I'm like, okay, I need to coach athletes and like tell people to bring their friends. Cool, I'm in.
Yeah.
If I was to boil your job down, I'm saying, okay, the athlete program director in a private sector business, these are the three most important things that you need to be concerned about. What are they?
Well, first is coaching. Making kids are like training, they're enjoying their sessions.
Sure.
They're doing everything safely, right? Second is selling, right? So getting kids to come into the facility. Um, and then third, I guess I would say is just if you do both of those things really well, right? Keeping clients is probably your third thing. So like making sure they stay and train with you for as long as they possibly can, right? A lot of people, I'm sure, train athletes or no athletes, but their schedule is very undulating. And a lot of people don't understand that, especially at a young age, training is probably the most important thing that they can do for themselves as kids in terms of like a parent to a kid. So I think if you do the first and second really well, the third will come a little bit more naturally. But just as to keep clients, and that just means having them understand that this is something they need in their life, that this is something that they should be doing on a regular basis all year long, not just pre and post season, which a lot of people have that mindset for sure. And I know like it struggles for me because I always trained all year long. I just love training and I love just
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. But a lot of people don't have that mindset or they don't like training. So, making sure that they're enjoying it and they're seeing the progress that they make will also help that third step definitely become a little bit easier as well.
You said coaching, selling, and keeping clients.
Yeah.
So getting into the weeds a little bit, AP is speaking at our buddy Zach Evanesh's event March 14th to a
Mhm.
group of meatheads, right? Probably
Yeah.
like super coach meatheads. So that'd be interesting.
Yeah.
However, one of the things that you're talking about is coaching, because I want to go into the weeds of each thing, because I feel like some of the system, not I feel, I know some of the systems that you've built within each of those have been instrumental in the growth of the program.
Yeah.
So from a coaching standpoint, all right, you're a female. What if you're a female who's coming into a business, predominantly that's all men and high school boys who are ridiculous?
Yes.
What was the way that you inserted yourself to be able to be an authoritative figure and get buy-in, from these kids? Females, you could say, but I think just as a whole and maybe even with male, like with men.
Yeah. I mean, it was definitely tough, especially from a young male side, just because I think it was my own preconceived notion. But like I said, I'm still pretty young. Especially when I took over this program 2 years ago, I was 23,
Totally.
24. So I was like only 2 years removed, and I'm coaching like 16 to 17-year-old boys and girls. Um, so it was trying to really find the balance of like being a friend, but also, like you said, being an authoritative figure to them. And while I struggled a little bit, I think people just respect people as an individual just based on their past experience, how they handle themselves, and how they communicate with others. So from like a coaching standpoint, I think that's really just what it is, right? It does not really matter about the X's and O's in terms of what people are doing during their session. It's how you communicate what we're doing, how you create man intensity within them, how you get them to buy in into that session, and then they'll buy in more into you. So it's more so just about communicating with them. I think I'm super honest with all the kids, good feedback, bad feedback, why we're doing something, why they shouldn't be doing something. And I think that just is just something that they really respect as well, is just being super honest with them and know that like then they trust you as an individual, and then they'll just create a little bit more buy-in from them as well.
From a coaching standpoint, in terms of working with specifically males and females, because I know you're speaking about this at the event, what
Yeah.
do you think was some of the main differences or maybe like trials that you faced, especially at like the junior, like middle, like the youth level, middle school level, or the high
Yeah.
school level? What were some of the main differences? Because with the dudes, it's like, I just want to deadlift and put on Drake, whereas like a girl is like, I don't want to get bulky.
Yeah. So I think going from a junior session to a high school session, obviously two totally different demographics. The way you communicate stuff to them is really different as well. For them, it's just obvious, it's a little different, right? The environment that you create. They want to have fun. They think of this kind of like as a playground. For them, especially, it's very, very hard facing. You have to set really hard boundaries for them, which was weird for me. I felt like a mom even though I'm like 23. But I feel like I was mothering some of these children just to set really hard boundaries for them to understand that like this is a serious place. They, even though they're young and they may not be doing super experienced stuff, they're still squatting, with dumbbells, they're still heavy dumbbell benching, they're still deadlifting either kettlebell, dumbbell, and maybe even some of them like a trap bar. So for them, it's just setting super hard boundaries for them. Training and communicating with like a high school boy and female, like you said, I'm going to speak about this a little bit differently, but like female to female, obviously girls are a little bit more comfortable. They're telling you things about themselves, telling, physically like touching you guys, right? Like if some of these girls have, found me almost as like a friend, and it's awesome. So, the way we communicate and I coach them is definitely way different than the boys. The girls, if you have a good relationship with them, you can get a little bit more hands-on. The boys, it's just a lot more like verbal communication with them. Like you said, they just want to lift heavy. So if you create that safe environment, and also you have to set like a pretty hard boundary for them as well, because things can go haywire pretty fast.
Right.
But the way you communicate to a boy and a girl is also going to be super different, like why you're doing an exercise, right? Like a girl, it has to be a little bit more, to start with a boy, it's going to be a little bit more like sports specific. They're going to be like, yeah, I just want to lift heavy. I want to get stronger.
Get
Yeah,
jacked.
get jacked. Yeah. Um, for a girl, it's just going to be way different. It's more about form, um, speed of movement, quality of movement, even though we're looking for both and everything. The way that you just communicate with that is just going to be a little bit different for sure.
Yeah, and also too, I think it like I'm just gonna say this off the cuff. I was gonna say this politely, but you train your face off. You train like a savage. And I think people know that.
Mhm.
And you didn't really mention it, but being a coach, I don't think, especially as a female, and I may be saying something ridiculous here, but I think as a female, you have to train your face off to garner respect in an industry that's predominantly males. Is that true?
I feel like that. Yes.
Because
Yeah.
it's like even though like obviously you were a D1 athlete,
Hmm.
even though like yes, you're squatting, you're benching, you're deadlifting, even if you're a female maybe and you're more like fitness centric,
Yeah.
right? But it's like I'm not into that stuff specifically, but you're like counting your calories, your cardiovascular shape is really high. Like you still get after it in some capacity.
Yeah.
I think is your baseline for being a authoritative figure if you're a female coach. And I mean that might be a crazy thing to say, but do you agree?
No, I 100% agree. I think it's weird to say, and sometimes I don't like saying that I played a Division I sport. But I think it definitely has garnered me a lot of respect, especially from a boy and a parent of a dad of a son for sure. Um, has garnered a little bit more respect than I think if not, I would have not done that for sure.
That yeah, that's one for sure because we're gonna get into silly next. But two, just the competency of movement.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, we're gonna do an RDL, but like you can't do 75 pounds out of the rack for an RDL, which is
Mhm.
common, which is
Yeah.
common. So part two, though, with the selling side of things, right? That's coaching. With selling, what are some things, we could get pretty open here just in terms of what we're doing here. Talk about some of the selling that we've done and you've done in terms of the process and what that looks like from your day-to-day job and how you sell training to athletes who are busier than ever,
Yeah.
in today's age. Does that
Mhm.
make sense?
Yeah. So yeah, we've changed, I'm sure, like, we've changed it a lot in the last year or so. When I first started out, like I said, there was no script, no nothing. It was like, it became unsurprisingly very natural. The good thing about being in a mature business like Varsity House Gym and that has had a lot of successful athletes come out of it is that a lot of people know who we are and they're probably already bought in just by our name. So, I think that's been super very beneficial in terms of the process itself, learning how to use some of our external services like not like high level anomaly, those kinds of things. That was a whole nother level. But the way we've communicated training to parents that are super busy is that we're just trying to be super understanding. So I know we sometimes say we have too many options here, but I think for the athlete program to be successful in some nature, you need to have a lot of options because They are so structured in terms of their practice times, their game times, that's their set standard schedule. It's not training. So
Mhm.
for them to train more, we need to have more flexibility and just being very open to them that we're willing to work with them in any nature of stage that they are in terms of where they are in their seasonal training. So having a lot of availability for them, like I said, going back to kind of working long hours, you kind of have to if you want to be a successful athlete company because their hours are very unforgiving in their nature. Their structured practices and such are their standard times, like school, like work for adults. um, their sports schedules are set in stone, so we have to be a little bit more flexible on the back end here. Yeah.
So if you were consulting me, I have a training business, I have an
Mhm.
athlete business, and I'm like, okay, I have really high seasons. Like this is actually true. So one of you guys who are in the group are listening, I just spoke with you about this. But if you say I have these huge fluctuations and I can't, I don't know how to retain kids, or I don't know how to keep kids for longer, or they're pausing, or they're leaving, what have you, what would you say to me? Like, what would be your 1 to 3 interventions if you're looking at your training business? What are the questions you're asking? What problems would you solve? And what tactics could you give me right now? So like writing that down that I could go apply.
Yeah. I think it's just looking at we did this a while ago, auditing your times. Um, I
You're
would
talking
rem
about like the times that are available on the actual schedule for kids to train.
yeah,
Okay.
like we audited times. We saw that like people and just communicating with the people that you already have. If people can't make your sessions that you have, you really need to look into is that the need that the population's really looking for? And if so, then you might have to add that time for them. So, like what we're going through in the next month or so is our spring season. Kids are going into season. Our spring sports kids are going into season. And I've just been one-off communicating with them about their sports schedules, their practice schedules. Their sports schedules are posted on their website for the most part as of right now. So I've been kind of looking at as well. And, we've tried in-season training in the past and it hasn't been super successful, maybe just because of the verbiage we were using, I think. So we changed that, right? We offering an unlimited amount of training sessions for 3 months at like a slightly discounted rate. And we're going to add a 7 p.m. time slot on Thursdays because that's the majority of times where most kids don't have games. So right, we have in terms of kids right now, we have 100 and plus kids training here. Um, and if we could keep, I would say probably like 80% of them play spring sports in some capacity. And if we can keep 60% of them and then folks back into from the winter sports, we'll still be at a really good solid number. So I think figuring out what the need is in terms of your community and your environment, and then really seeing if that's something that you guys are capable of doing. And then you have to meet the need of the individual, right? So I think that's first and foremost. Second, in terms of what you can do to keep clients longer, is just communicating with them, right? That in-season training year long is a full process and reasoning in terms of like your assessment process. So when we do like intake new clients, either over the phone or in person, they're always asking us, well, how long does this program run? And right off the bat, I always say it's an all year long program. We're very flexible in terms of what your schedule is. You can undulate between frequency as you move through your seasons. But this is an all year training process. And then we explain why it's very important for them to train in a year long basis, especially as like seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th grader, right? They're still very young into their training background. Like 2 4 years if you've trained is really a really short amount of time.
Mhm.
And your gap to gain is still very, very big. So they can always get better. And that's something that we always communicate with like the parents and the individuals as well.
Sure.
Uh, and then what else did you say? Sorry.
Oh, so you're good. The first one is scheduling, like being available and knowing the need of the individuals that you're working with. And I'm
Mhm.
sure that not only current, but people who are inquiring,
Yeah.
right? You ask a ton of questions in the inquiry process just to see like, hey, we might not be a good fit for you, but if you're trying to work through and they said, if you did have this and over the span of a month, that happens 10, 15 times, it's like, okay, that might need to be addressed.
Yep.
The second thing you just said was just your language and how you speak. And I know we
Mhm.
changed that a little bit where instead of just saying like, I know I'm getting very granular, but instead of saying like, hey, like it's no contract, just come in, we train, you're changing the ideology behind the parent of saying this is a year long, this is an evergreen journey that
Yeah.
we're doing. And so, that was this first two there. I said if
Mhm.
you're interviewing a business, the third thing that's super important are consulting a business. But the third thing that's super important is what metrics are you looking at to know if that business is even doing well. So it's like,
Right.
okay, like I feel like we're doing well. We have a lot of kids. Check the bank accounts. There's some money there, but like, what are you actually looking at on a weekly basis?
Yeah. So I always check our processes, like how much money we're making on a given day, through MindBody. So I check that every morning, and see if we're having a low income day, how I can make some money on that specific day. If it's like reactivating a client, if we have a private that's up for sessions the next week or so, if we can get money sooner is better, right?
Mhm.
Um, Next we have our scorecard that we keep track of how many clients are doing 1 time a week, 2 time a week, 3 time a week, unlimited, how many kids are on set package of sessions, how many kids we have found private training, and constantly looking that in terms of the tough thing about athletes. I know we talk about this a lot, is how we can get people to upgrade in terms of sessions. Really, also, like I just mentioned, depends on their schedule. So, if I know like seasonally, right, like we know about 60% of our high school group is going to go into spring season in the next month or so. The ideology that they're not going to leave, and try to get them to commit to another membership, if in the next month or so, to keep them on for that period of time. So we keep track of who's in high school and what price per client that they're paying in terms of frequency of like how they're training. So that's another way. And then our last way in terms of metrics that we track all of our data, obviously. And we send those out to parents via like email,
Data,
text message.
data, you're saying like data that's happening on the training floor.
Yes, data that's
Yeah.
happening on training floor.
Okay.
So we track all even up to juniors and on all their data. And a great thing that's helped in terms of attrition and a little bit more buy-in from the client and the parents is that we've been sending mini progress reports to them, especially the parents, because a lot of them kind of just sign their kid up and don't really know what their kid is doing here. Some of them are super involved, some of them are not. So some of them ask for progress reports so that we send them on a monthly basis. Some of them have probably no idea what we even do here. So if us starting to send out that information, especially to a parent, has helped a lot because the parent has seen the success in us and their kid, and then they'll keep paying for them to become more successful.
Managing the business is scorecards, checking the money every day, knowing your lead flow and how can I send people. And then you
Yeah.
kind of started it. So that's, we're on selling, but now getting to keeping clients, you just
Yep.
alluded to that. I think that one process that you guys started to intervene or start to use really made a difference because ultimately we're taking care of people and you're communicating with people's kids, and I know
Yeah.
I say this to you a lot. I show you my son videos, but it's the truth is like when you're a parent, if I'm paying money for something, that person better show me what's happening with my kid.
Yeah. Hmm.
So what was like the main process behind that in terms of like for you, it's like let's say if you were like, okay, I want to do that. Like that's a great idea.
Yeah.
How do I implement that in my business right now?
Yeah. So we start small. I mean, we have like a little bit of a staff now in terms of our athlete program. There's 4 of us that train the majority of the athletes. Um, and so what we do is just right now we have a good volume of kids. So each week we just pick one kid. So that's 4 kids a week, and we make sure we get good data, or good videos of them, or we go back and look at their data from like a week to week, month to month basis. We write like a little report of them, and then what we do is either via text message or email, we'll send out that report to the parent, and we've gotten nothing but positive responses from it. And we've gotten, I would love to see more. So the parent just feeds off that information, right? Like you said, a lot of people really like from a parent standpoint, they want to see their kid successful. And I think especially in this environment, it's hard for them to understand how their kid is actually getting better and how it's actually going to benefit them on the field without like visual data, explanations, seeing that progress. And it's hard. Like you can see if your kid's getting hitting lessons, soccer lessons, you can visually see that they're getting better footwork, they're hitting the ball harder. But the translation from strength training to the field, a lot of people don't really understand, especially from
Yeah,
a parent
sure.
perspective that hasn't trained, because most of these parents probably don't really go to a gym, haven't played a sport in a very long time. So for us to explain that the benefit of this exercise, how it's going to make them better and how successful their kids getting better at it, has been really beneficial. And it's kept kids training, I believe, a lot longer than they would have naturally than we have been in the last year or so.
And I think too is it keeps us on our toes, meaning
Mhm.
like, are we getting results?
Yeah.
It's very, yeah, I think that that was something that I wouldn't say we struggled with because we knew we were training, but I just think as little as like a year or 2 years ago is we were recording things in notebooks, and then that's one thing. And it's like, hey, oh crap, AP, she was doing 20-pound dumbbells, now she's doing 30. But to actually package that up and give it to a parent,
Mhm.
like who is the person who's actually paying for the service, I think adds a
Yeah.
little gravitas to that
Yeah.
process.
Yeah,
So
like we were sending out like progress reports, like to parents. We were mailing them to parents, and
yeah,
feel like half of them probably didn't even understand what it meant. They're
sure.
like, they're like, what is this? So, I'm a big visual learner. I think most people are. So, I think visualization and showing parents and even kids, their love. Kids love social media.
Oh my goodness.
They're like, can you follow me back on Instagram? I'm like, yes, but they just
If
want
I will.
yeah, yeah, in due time.
Yeah.
They're like, they just want to see, them on some video feed, some social feed. That's what they're on all day, and it's been great. Yeah.
For sure. You talk about managing the kids and the data and the athletes. I think one thing that skill set that you're doing there has built into is more your managerial role and
Hmm.
like managing now people. It's like you spoke about it before, but it's like, okay, junior kids, you're acting as a mom figure, which is just like wild at your age. Then you
Yeah.
progress to like, okay, now I'm selling and talking to these parents, grown ass adults. Then it's like, okay, now I'm managing people in my team
Hmm.
from a leadership standpoint, what was that like going from it's just about me, I'm doing my work, but now I'm responsible for getting these people better?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's probably the biggest struggle that I've had in my career so far. I'm like, kind of just want to do it all myself. From some unknown reason, I think just because
Guilty.
yeah. When I started this, I was just, it was just me. I had a little bit of help here and there, right? But not a lot. It was kind of just thrust upon me, and they were like, and you guys were like, this is the goal, and this is just the goal, and how we're gonna get there. So, I think that's definitely been the biggest struggle because a lot of people don't think the same way, and we all think a little bit differently. So it's been very cool for me to learn how other people learn, and I think that's made me a better learner. But it's definitely been the most difficult thing is trying to figure out ways to communicate with your coworkers, and that are either younger than you or older than you, and get them to be successful in the environment that we're trying to create, and how I can communicate differently to everyone, but we all try to get the same result in the end. So I think that was definitely the hardest part in my transition.
So like what has been the three hardest things in the leadership? Because this is real time. Today at 12 o'clock, I had a call with a female coach who's a manager,
Hmm.
and she was having similar issues of relating to the team and getting buy-in.
Yeah.
So what is 2 to 3 things that you would suggest that young coaches do? Because it's also, I don't want to keep talking here, but it's also like everybody's kind of the same age.
Yeah.
So that's just like it's not like you're just like the woman that's been here, you're 35 and everybody's 23. It's like this is just naturally going to happen.
Yeah.
So from your position, what has been the 2 to 3 things that you would advise a young coach on how to lead others?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I'm only either a year older or two than some of my coworkers, or a few years younger than some of them. So, I think the hardest thing is because we're so close in age, is how to create that boundary of respect.
Sure.
That you're the one in charge, and I think a lot of people do respect that. And obviously, there's times when we're joking around, and then such things such as like that. But the hardest part is learning how to draw that boundary into when is it like having like fun time communicating with your coworkers and when is it time to get work done, right? Setting like concrete times where we're meeting about X, Y, and Z, and we're gonna do X, Y, and Z in the next few days. And if you don't, like we said, I think this was a few weeks ago, like yeah, if maybe you don't send out your progress report that week, is it really, really that big of a deal if you do it the following week? Maybe not in that moment, right? But in terms of creating successful business, and getting more buy-in from kids or from your coworkers, it's also is the educational aspect of them is that yes, they might not be in charge of this, there might be not be in charge of the athlete program like myself, but what they do matters. And we all want to make more money. We all want to be more successful. We all want the business to do better. And thus then it also
Kids
makes
to get better.
yeah, it makes kids better and makes you better as a coach, right? Like if you know like you need to if you know that your kid is the one that you're picking for their progress report and they're doing a really bad job on their drills, on their dumbbell bench press and you're not coaching it and then you take that video and send it to their parent. Yeah, maybe their parent might not really understand that this is not the standard that we're looking for, but it also checks themselves as an individual and a coach that they need to step up as well. So setting the boundary, I would say, between coworkers that are similar age for you, just set times and days that you're meeting and you're getting work done, and that this is benefiting the team, and then educating them that even though they might not necessarily be directly in charge of the athlete program, they're in charge of their session, they're in charge of the kids they're training, right? If kids are getting better, it just helps the business get better as well. So I think those are probably the two things.
One thing we talked I'm going to air out our laundry, if you will. But
Yeah.
we had a serious conversation on the training floor 2 years ago by the yellow stairs. I use this as an example all the time. And the conversation was basically me giving her a pep talk. No, I'm kidding. Was basically just like, hey, look, if you want to do this, it's going to require something extraordinary from yourself and the
Yeah.
standard that you're going to have to set from yourself. And once that standard is set, then it's going to bleed into others.
Hmm.
And you see that time and time again with other coaches. So, what is the standard that should be set? You don't have to give a soliloquy, but what is the standard that should be set from yourself as a prerequisite into leading others?
Yeah, I think you just need to take so much pride in your work, and know that yes, every day might not be 100%. I use this phrase a lot, because I think it just really helped me in college. But you're never gonna have 100% of yourself on every single day. But you have to give 100% of what you have on that day to give. So, that like I said, this job, like everyone knows, it's long hours, it's hard work, you're on your feet all day, you're communicating with people all day. But setting the standard that yes, you might not be at 100% every single day, but you have to give 100% of whatever you have during that day. So, and then just owning that your role, right? No matter the good parts, the bad parts, right? We've had really good months, we've had really bad months, right? And just owning it and understanding and learning from the good things that have happened and the bad things that happened. So, being in a managerial role is very fun because you reap the rewards of your work right in the moment, right? Like you sign someone up, it's very exciting. You know that they've liked the training so far, they're gonna keep training, and that's super rewarding. But just making your effort very consistent, you know, is really, really super important. And it's just that's probably the number one thing I would say, like I said, not giving, even though you don't have 100% to give every single day, giving 100% of whatever you have on that day.
Yeah, that's great advice. I think personal consistency is a
Yeah.
reflection, and now people know they either have to kind of like get in with that or it's
Yeah.
just not going to jive.
Yeah.
One thing that's the mindset of leadership. So just your
Mhm.
ability to overcome that. I think sometimes people can be overwhelmed, or young coaches, young females can be overwhelmed when they're like, okay, that's great. Like those are the things that I want to do. I have this meeting that I need to run with these coaches on Monday.
Mhm.
Like that's the first step, right? You said meeting a bunch of times. What does a good meeting look like? And what's if I'm a young coach and I'm taking notes, it's like, okay, like what are the important things about running a good meeting? What
Mhm.
does that look like?
I think it is being very honest with your coworkers and like what needs to be done. Right? We talk about money a lot. And I think that's super important, especially for some of our younger coaches, for them to realize that like, oh, this is how much this person's paying, this is how much all these people are paying. And then if one person leaves, it hurts our business by X. So I think that's something that has helped me a lot. It's definitely made me more
Lead with the
driven.
numbers, then be
Yeah.
transparent.
Yeah, to lead with your numbers. I think everyone's influenced by money in some sense, even if it's not directly influenced by you. But like if you know we're having a tough month and you're very honest with your coworkers about it, that will hopefully, right, drive them to find ways of success in other areas of the business, right?
Yeah.
So if it's we're having a tough month, we're doing a bring a friend week, it's just asking your five best clients that you know have a really good relationship with to bring in a friend. So I think being super honest with them about the money that we're making, the money that we're losing is very beneficial. And then I like to be super super concise, very straightforward.
Let's just say tactics, though. So you could be concise. Yeah, what you are. I'm saying like go through like your meeting doc. Like what's the tactics? What are the things you're talking about?
Yeah, so we always talk about money, revenue, and from a month to month, week to week basis. We talk about people that we've signed up, people that have left, and for various reasons. And then we always talk about the product first. So, how's the training sessions going? How is attendance going? Is there anything we need to change? Is there any spacing issue we need to go over? How can we make our product better? Because that's really why people pay to come here is before a training service, right? So you need to understand that your people are paying you to give them something. So we always go over that second right after our money. If there's some things we need to work on, we talk about it. If there's not, we move on to our either events that we're doing, either our defensive work that we're doing, and then we do that work right then and there in that meeting. We pick who we're going to reach out to, pick who we're going to post on social media. We talk about who we want to congratulate in within that given week, and we do all of that work right then and there. So
And then you're
that's
done.
and then we're done. Yep.
Yeah. So if you guys are listening, just like you said, I mean, you said it, just being concise, getting the work done, planning. And I think one thing you said, which is so true, is just product first.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, like obviously you need to know the numbers and the revenue, but it's like, how do we just make the product better? And how
Yep.
can we continuously improve that? So, okay. I didn't write this in our doc. You ready?
I'm sure. I'm nervous.
Like, I'm like,
Yeah.
this is a rapid fire Q&A. I do this every guest usually that
Oh,
I have on the podcast here, okay? So
okay.
just a series of questions here to round us out.
Yeah.
What's your best lift?
Um, Probably my squat or
What's
hex
the what'd you hit?
on which one?
Well, I'm saying what'd you hit on what's your best PR that you hit?
Probably my deadlift.
What'd you hit?
315 for three.
Oh, okay, there we go.
Yeah.
Craziest experience at Varsity House in 30 seconds or less.
In 30 seconds or less.
What was the craziest thing that you experienced at Varsity House?
I think one Friday afternoon in the summer, you had me
Oh gosh.
coach the college group, and then prior to that, I had to coach like all the adults in the morning, and then in an hour, coach like three college hockey players on a back-to-back basis.
So you were gassed out from coaching.
Yeah. And then I had to go to a BOS event after I think.
Giddy up. Giddy up. What book has been the most influential in your coaching managerial careers thus far?
Ooh, that's a good one. Um, I'd probably say, um, gosh, good Lord, the most influential.
This is not rapid fire.
I know this is not rapid fire. I'd probably say, Win by I forget his name.
That's a good one.
Yeah,
I gift AP
I
books all
know.
the time, and she reads a lot, but for some reason, not the books that I get you. Collecting dust.
No, I have. It's
What's
just,
happening?
yeah. I'll get on it.
That's most athletic player you've ever trained at Varsity House.
Most athletic.
Just like,
Uh,
wow, this person's a freak.
oh, good Lord, what's his face?
Big Kev.
No. No. What?
I said he's in the mix somewhere.
He's definitely in the
WWE Kev, come on, he's in the mix.
WWE camp. Most athletic. I'd have to say, I think Fry is probably the most athletic.
You think?
No, yeah, in most
He's up
categories.
there for sure.
Yeah,
Fry, for you listening, as a young athlete, she's a freshman, not she's gonna be a sophomore, but
she's a sophomore. Yeah,
yeah, sophomore, but she's a freak, like
yeah,
literally from a strength, speed, power standpoint. Okay,
yeah.
last question here. If you could give advice to a young 20-year-old female strength coach who wants to be in private sector, what are you telling her?
I would just tell them her, sorry. Just to be like undeniably who she is, right? Put herself in as many situations as possible and just learn, right? This is a heavily male dominated environment, and even though it's becoming a little bit less than it has been in the past, just try to you being a female in the industry kind of already sets yourself apart from the others. So just owning that and dialing into learning as much as possible from others and becoming the best coach that you possibly can is probably the easiest way for you to feel comfortable and also start your career as a strength conditioning coach in the industry. People come to you, right, to train. It's a service. You don't need like an MBA, you don't need a ton of sales experience. That just comes naturally after like being true to who you are and having a ton of experience underneath your belt.
That's great advice, AP.
Thank you
Alex, thanks for being on the podcast. Long time
for
coming.
having me. Yeah.
Guys, if you want to learn more about anything that we're doing specifically to the athlete program, you can hit Alex Pleasic up. I'll put her email in our show notes. But
Mhm.
thank you for your time, AP.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. Hey guys, what is going on? This is Adam Menner from Varsity House Gym and the Business of Strength. Today, I'm super excited. I have our own Coach Alex Pleasic, our athlete program director and assistant director of training here. AP has an awesome story. She was a young athlete, a young girl training here, literally in seventh and eighth grade. From there, she went on to play Division I softball at Rhode Island University. She made her way back to an internship, and from there, she ascended very quickly in a short 3-year span from an intern to a head coach to our athlete program director. And here she breaks down all of that, her journey, mindset, the tactics, skill sets, and the coaching ability needed to be a young female coach in this industry and be successful. So that's who I have for you guys today. But before that, I have a few announcements. The first is we are running a marketing seminar called Weight Room Wealth. That is in May. We will post the dates below. That is something that is going to be very cool and unique in terms of the way in which we're presenting marketing to gym owners in terms of where we're headed in 2025. The second thing that I have is if you'd like to schedule a strategy session with myself, Joe, Dan, our coach Mike, this is where we will literally break down your business. Hey, what's going on? What's the most pressing problem? Where do you need the most support? There's a lot of coaching groups. There are a lot of things that are happening right now, but we truly believe that we provide concierge one-on-one service for gym owners, just like you would do private training in your own business. It is something that we are extremely passionate about, Dan, myself, Joe, and Mike. And so we would love to serve you. So if you'd like to schedule a strategy call, please do so. Our Weight Room Well seminar in May, we will have those dates posted. Well, let's get to the show. Thanks, guys.